Hey guys, welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show. It is Friday, September 12th. Happy Friday. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. This is obviously has been a crazy week in the news. I've done a couple of live streams. I did Night Owls last night. I did a live stream previous to that. A lot of stuff happening with Charlie Kirk. And if you're new to the show, welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe. I am trying to build my channel. And I kind of mix between live streams and videos like this. Typically, when I do videos like this, I do a top 5 news items of the day, on normal days, but it's not been a normal week. So I haven't done one of those shows. Hopefully, if things settle down next week, I'll be back with the top 5 news stories. We had a great roundtable this week with the people on my Substack. If you like what I do, sign up with my Substack. We had a great roundtable discussing things. Obviously, the big news is Charlie Kirk and his assassination in Utah. I was worried that, are they going to catch the killer or not? They had the video, and I was hoping someone would identify him. And it looks like that is what happened. He was identified, and the police got him. And now we're looking at, okay, what was his motivations? What happened? And I don't want a lot of speculation. I'd rather go to the source. So let's take a look at the source here. This is the governor of Utah this morning. They gave a press conference about the search for Charlie Kirk's killer. And I'll stop it. We'll just go through this. I'll stop it on various parts, but let's take a look at this.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident.
So what happened is the suspect, Tyler Robinson, he went down and committed the crime, and then he drove a couple hundred miles to his parents' house. I think he was still living with his parents, and he ended up confessing, and they put pressure on him to turn himself in. Obviously, how are you going to live otherwise?
This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years.
And I'll stop it here. There's been further clarification of that. He didn't become more political in the sense of being more right-wing. He became very left-wing. The family was very affluent. They had like a $600,000 house, which in Utah is a very expensive house. It's an expensive house here in Arkansas too. I know it isn't in California, but his family had money. He grew up with nice parents. Looked like he had everything. Smart kid. His parents tend to be, I don't think they're that political, but if you had to label them, I would say they were like conservative Republicans, people that you would think from Utah. But what happened is the suspect, Tyler, he started to change in high school and become more left wing at that point.
The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate.
So what happened is they had a family dinner, and Tyler was saying, hey, this Charlie Kirk is coming to the university, and I hate this guy. He's just full of hate, fascist, that type of thing. So he had already said this. So he wasn't saying, I'm looking forward to Charlie Kirk coming because he's based and he's going to red pill people. No, he expressed his hatred towards Charlie Kirk. And he didn't hate him because he wasn't right wing enough. He hated him because he considered him to be a fascist or Nazi, the usual things, white supremacist, the usual litany. All right, let's continue.
The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel.
All right, this is key. So I guess he did have a roommate, Tyler, and the roommate, broke under pressure with the FBI. And he said, yeah, you can look at the Discord server that Tyler was on. And in the Discord server, he was talking to people, because that's what you do. You just don't talk to yourself. So there's other people there, and they were talking about having a drop point for the rifle. So this is pretty good evidence that it wasn't just Tyler. He's probably the only shooter, but this sounds a criminal conspiracy probably. Other people knew something was going to happen, and they were involved with at least giving him the rifle or providing the rifle at a drop point. And you could speculate, was it just one other person or were there many? I believe this was an Antifa Discord server, and I think many people were involved with this, and they had different roles. I think some of them may have been at the event and scouting it out, providing distractions. Other people, again, were probably planning the rifle at a drop point. And those people, by the way, if they're caught, they could be facing first-degree murder charges too, and the death penalty. A lot of people don't understand that, but if you help someone that commits murder, you're also guilty of it. So this is an interesting development here.
The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits.
All right, so this is seeing this Tyler, he had become more political and he became left-wing. This is according to the family, and it's been verified. And then right before Charlie Kirk came, he was talking to his family how he hated Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk was full of hate. And so he already had something against Charlie Kirk. And then we have evidence on the day or before of the shooting, there was some planning in a Discord server about a drop point for the gun, meaning dropping the gun off, or maybe someone else dropped the gun off for him and it was wrapped in a white towel, then he would pick it up. They may have planted it on the roof a couple days in advance. I'm not sure the details. I'm just going by what the governor says here. But this suggests at least one other person was involved. And I think it's likely it just wasn't one person. I think there were multiple people involved in this criminal assassination conspiracy. Tyler was the shooter. He was a finger man. But I think a lot of other people potentially were involved with this. And these people that were involved with this weren't right-wingers. They were people that hated Charlie Kirk, and they considered him to be a fascist, Nazi, white supremacist. You get the idea.
I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings.
What happens when you shoot a gun, the casing, the bullets in falls out of the gun, and it's been become common with political shootings. They put writings on the casings because they know that the police will find them, and to leave a message like, why are you doing this?
Those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle.
Okay, so this is a political message, what he engraved on the casings. And again, this isn't from me, or this isn't wild rumors on the internet. This is from the governor speaking here.
Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital OWO, what's this question mark?"
I think I didn't know what that meant, but I guess that's some internet slang when you notice a transgender, a guy that's dressed up like a girl and he's trying to pretend to be a girl, but you notice he has the bulge. I think that is part of that. And as we saw, if you look at the video photo I put for the thumbnail, you'll see that he was at an event. He had the trans flag on and the LGBTQ flag on his vest. He was a big, I guess you would call it an ally of those people. I don't see any evidence he himself was trans, although he was involved. It came out in some weird sexual furry community, which I always thought furries were people that just like to dress up as animals. It's just kind of a fun thing. But there's a subset of that group that does it for sexual reasons because they want to pretend they're having sex with animals. It's really sick, but there's this, this world's just getting demented. And I guess he was in that scene there.
Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point."
So he was telling, this was to Charlie Kirk, "Hey fascist, catch this." And obviously he was considering Charlie Kirk to be a fascist, and hey, catch this bullet, Charlie.
Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and 3 down arrows.
So then he said another casing with the 3 arrows. That's the Antifa symbol they use. And so he was showing he was part of the Antifa culture. And we'll get into that a little bit.
Symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao." And a third.
That is Italian, and I guess that was Italian anti-fascists used to say that. I've never heard of that. But according to people that understand the anti-fascist terminology, that's the slogan that they say.
Unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together.
And the rest of this, they just pat their back how well law enforcement did. But to be honest, he got away. The only reason they got him is he confessed to his family, I think his father, and they convinced him to turn himself in. So it wasn't some like Columbo that solved this case, right? That's the truth of it. But, I guess it could be hard. But we got him, it looks like. All right, some thoughts about this. Obviously, the motive, just if you watch that, is clear. He wanted to kill Charlie Kirk because he considered Charlie Kirk to be a fascist or Nazi. And he was told his whole life, or through the schools and the media, his family, I guess, were kind of conservative types, Republican. But then he learned that, well, Nazis are the most evil thing in the world. And if you could go like in a time machine and kill baby Hitler, you would have to do that, which I consider that horrible. Because in my opinion, I don't care if you are a Nazi, you have a right to speak, you have a right to gather. I don't have any problem with that. But see, the left says, no, not with Nazis. I mean, well, everyone else, but not Nazis. Nazis are too dangerous. A lot of the Jewish people have been pushing this meme, so they need to be shut down and killed. And it's a good thing to kill Nazis, just like it would have been good to kill Hitler. It's a moral thing to do. And a lot of Republicans picked up on that. I remember years ago, Ted Cruz, when asked that question, he goes, yeah, you got to go back in time and kill baby Hitler. I would do that. It's a, kind of a silly thought experiment, but it's horrific. How can you kill a baby? It's just no morality to it. With Ted Cruz, though, he's not really a Christian. He's a heretic, but I won't get into that. But that type of logic, okay? So you have this logic that anyone's a Nazi, they are fair game to murder, and it's a justifiable. That is become the logic. And then the next step was, well, who exactly is a Nazi? And according to the left, anyone that disagrees with them is a Nazi by definition. Even left wingers are considered Nazis based on their view of things. So if you say something like, maybe kids shouldn't go through sexual sex changes, they would call that a Nazi position, and therefore you are deserving of death. And that's their logic. So you get someone like Tyler, who's not stupid, but he can see things through. So he's told that, okay, it's the most moral thing in the world to kill Nazis. And everyone's saying Charlie Kirk is a Nazi, even though he isn't, but that doesn't matter to them. If you think white people have a right to live, or any of the positions, if you're against immigration, you're a Nazi. That's how they phrase it. So Charlie Kirk in his mind was a Nazi, fascist, all that. So therefore, I have not only the moral right, I have the moral duty to kill him. This is a good thing. And everyone else is too weak and a pussy to do that. But all my Antifa friends, they say this is a good thing to do. Hey, I'm not going to be the pussy. I'm going to show them I mean it. I'm going to do it. And so that's what happened. He did it. And he had help, it looked like, based on what the governor was said. He was meeting with, it had to be at least, again, one other individual, because you don't go into a Discord server just to talk to yourself and talking about drop points and all that type of stuff. So there had to be at least one person. And I doubt it was just one person. I bet there were several people involved with this plot to various degrees that knew this was going to happen. And this would explain, because there was some transgender, it was on Twitter a couple of days ago, and when they're trying to figure out who did this, that was bragging that Charlie Kirk was soon going to die and that type of stuff from Utah. I wouldn't doubt if that person may have been part of this in the Discord server. We don't know. But we do know this is a motivation. Now, the left, they're liars as usual. They're trying to spin this that maybe he was a right-wing guy because his parents were like Republican types. And so he must be a Republican, right? Right. But it's not the case. And you don't have to believe me. Listen to the governor, the investigation team, and what they are saying. And they're trying to do a lot of really stupid stuff, saying, oh, well, he's probably a groiper, a supporter of Nick Fuentes. And there's no evidence of that. I mean, he hated Charlie Kirk. I know you could say Fuentes didn't like Charlie Kirk because he was too milquetoast. But someone from like the Nick Fuentes sphere wouldn't call Charlie Kirk a fascist. It just is just not what they would say. They may call him a cuck or something, but they're not going to call him a fascist. And we know, we don't have to guess this, because again, according to the police and the governor, his own family said that he was left-wing for years. He was talking about how he hated Charlie Kirk, how Charlie Kirk was a fascist. So anyone that says that this guy was right-wing or a Christian, they are a fucking liar, just straight out a fucking liar. And they're contradicting the evidence and the casings. It's just ridiculous. It's a horrible spin that they're trying to do. And I even saw on X, some leftist piece of shit, they photoshopped Tyler with a like Trump shirt on t-shirt. It was fake. It was a MAGA t-shirt. It was a fake Photoshop or AI. So they're doing a lot of this stuff. He was definitely a left-winger, and he was involved with Antifa activities. All right, now this brings up what all this Antifa is. It means anti-fascist. And these are groups that I first ran into or heard about 2015, 16. And they believe they're just not about leftist protesting. They see themselves as militia. And again, they see themselves as being able to determine, for example, who's able to speak. And they feel like Ramsey Paul shouldn't be able to speak. So if he tries to speak at a hotel we're going to try to get them canceled, or we're going to call them bomb threats. And see, they think they're justified in doing this. And they've been doing this quite a while. They dress in all black. They call it a black bloc. You'll see them with black umbrellas. They do that to try to hide from the cameras when they're committing crimes. And they carry a lot of times skateboards so they can use them as weapons. Just so you know, that's how they operate. And they try to mask themselves and try to act tough. A lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are meth addicts. A disproportionate amount of them are transgender. They're very angry people, but that's who they are. And a lot of these people, these organizations, they've been funded by very powerful people, including Soros. And Donald Trump today, lending credence that this was an Antifa operation, said based on this, they're doing a RICO investigation on Soros and probably a lot of these groups. Because what happens, these groups, they get funneled money by powerful people to do basically terrorist tactics where they don't want people to be allowed to speak freely. That's part of being an American, our First Amendment. But they're like, no, Nazis don't have a right to speak, and we determine who's a Nazi. And so if you try to speak, we have a right to threaten you or even murder you. And this may sound extreme. You may think that Tyler is extreme, but look how many people cheered him on. It wasn't just like one or two. There were a lot that cheered this guy on for murdering Charlie Kirk, who most of us think is kind of Civ Natish, kind of milquetoast. Although he was getting better. He followed me. All right, he knew who I was. And I like Charlie Kirk. I saw Charlie Kirk evolve. And I thought he was getting more base. But he was always a friendly guy, and he dealt with people in good faith. And but it doesn't matter. Right. These people, they would consider Ben Shapiro to be a Nazi. You could, in our view, it's like, well, that's crazy. He's Jewish. They don't care. That's not how they think. You disagree with them, you're a Nazi, and Nazis deserve to die. So that's their logic. That's it. That's their logic. And this is why they're so dangerous. And now they play games with the whole term Antifa, saying, well, it's not a real organization. And they're playing little games there because what they do is they understand the problem with RICO. That's the Organized Crime Act, where if you determine some people of an organization are committing crimes, you can roll up the other people higher up that are basically facilitating it. And it was initially used for the organized crime, like the mafia, because how do you get the top guys? Because they insulate themselves. They themselves don't do the murders and stuff. The Don, the mafia bosses, they have their underlings do it, but they kind of give the instructions. So with RICO, you're able to roll up the whole organization. And it's been used for other things too. It can be used for political groups. And so this is definitely Trump and the Justice Department can use RICO for Antifa, meaning not just Tyler, who pulled the trigger. Obviously, he was probably going to face a death penalty. And whoever was in the Discord server with him, I don't know how many were, but it seems logical, more than just himself. They could be facing the death penalty too, if caught, conspiracy. But it's also the broader organization that helped to facilitate this. And who was funding the organization? Sounds like Trump thinks it was primarily people like Soros and his son. And so you could go after those people, say, hey, Soros, you may not have physically pulled the trigger, but you provided the infrastructure for these guys to go out and assassinate. And we're going to roll you up as if it's just like Tyler. And so this can be a very effective tool. Now, Antifa realizes this, so they try to argue they're not a real group. It's not like a membership. And there's some truth to that. There's various cells is how they work. But if you notice, they all dress the same. They all use the same tactics. There's a lot of coordination. So while they may say they're not an official group, it doesn't matter what they say. They operate as an official group. Doesn't mean they carry membership cards or anything like that. This is the way a lot of these revolutionary groups operate. And it's not uncommon. So RICO could definitely be used by FBI's people and informants, because you get a lot of these people in Antifa, they're drug addicts and they sell drugs. And a lot of them could be facing years in prison, and they could easily flip and become an informant, give names, and it'd be easy to roll up these organizations. Previously, this hasn't been done. They've been off limits. The FBI has been infiltrating white organizations and try to get informers in there, people that support white identity, but they've left Antifa alone. But they could easily get informants into Antifa and roll those people up. And they're probably shitting bricks right now because it sounds like that's what Trump and the Justice Department plan to do. And they need to do that because these guys are fundamentally traitors. They're against what America is. America's the idea that we're free and people can say what they want. You may not like it and you can debate them. You don't have to listen to them, but you don't have a right to murder someone just because you don't like what they say. Whereas Antifa is like, no, we don't like what you say. We have a right to murder you. And we're the good guys for that. And there's no living with these people. They need to be rooted out ruthlessly. And I wouldn't mind if Trump declared a state of emergency and declared these people really don't get constitutional protections. Just round them the fuck up and deal with them as you need to. It needs to be done ruthlessly because these are ruthless people. We shouldn't show them any mercy. There's none of this unity talk. These people need to be wiped out one way or the other. And so we're kind of at a war right now. But the point is, Tyler Robinson was the most recent example of this based on what we heard from that interview from the governor. So he wasn't a right winger. He wasn't a fan of Nick Fuentes. He was a left winger according to his own family. He hated Charlie Kirk. He called Charlie Kirk a fascist. He's been seen in a lot of their activities, like on my thumbnail with the whole gay and trans flag, the whole bit, right? This was Tyler. So don't let them fool you on that. So we're going to go through a turbulent time because I think the next step is to try to figure out who else was working with Tyler, who was funding Tyler, and we got to look at all these type of things and how many more of these type of situations are out there. We've known for a long time these Antifa, especially the transgender Tranifa, they call themselves. They're very violent and they make up very violent rhetoric. Well, they need to be rounded up really quick, and because you see how dangerous they are. And I think this is the key right now. So it's a kind of a grim time, but we can't treat these as fellow Americans. They're not. They're basically like communists. They hate us. They're not part of us. We shouldn't consider them citizens. No mercy for them. We got to roll them up hard and get them out one way or the other. They can't continue to operate like this. This is building for a long time. It's been building. I knew this would probably happen one day because of Antifa, they've been escalating their attacks. Remember, they did that in 2016 a lot, and under George Floyd, the rioting and fire bombings. And it was just a matter of time until they did targeted assassinations. But this still really shook Americans. I think all of us. This changed America. The target assassination of someone that's not even a politician, just someone that's speaking his mind. The closest example I could think of this ever happening in America was in '68, I believe, Martin Luther King Jr. And he wasn't a politician. And technically, he wasn't giving a speech at the time. He was on the hotel balcony. But that was probably the closest time has happened since then. So over 50 years ago. It's shocking to people. You just kill someone because you don't like what they say. But this is where we are right now, and we can't tolerate this at all. This has crossed a line that's extremely taboo, and we can't do this. And this isn't something that's just being talked about in our circles. Went to the restaurant the other day. The waitress was talking about it in the doctor's eye office. The people that working there were talking about Charlie Kirk, what's happening. This has really struck a chord, and we need to go after these people. And the people that support this, we need to look at as terrorists. They don't have rights. They need to be fired. We need to take names because this is a serious matter. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Talk to you guys later.